Hello and welcome. Come, let me take you on a walking tour of Kedarnath with me. Kedarnath actually means Lord of the Fields. It's a unique name and its origin is in Sanskrit. It has combination of two words. One is Kedara and the next is Natha, which means Kedara, field, Natha, Lord, and Lord of the Fields. It's a unique name and I'll tell you the backstory a short while later. It's located in the foothills of the Himalayas in the state of Uttarakhand, and Himalayas also is a Sanskrit word which is a combination of two words, Hima plus Alayas, Hima meaning snow and Alayas meaning temples. So, snow temples or temples of snow. Uh, Now that you know that, let's see how to get there. So, there are many possible ways to get to Kedarnath, and I'll tell you the way we took. Nearest airport to Kedarnath is Dehradun, which is in the state of Uttarakhand. It's also the capital of Uttarakhand, and you can take a flight to Dehradun from anywhere in India, from the major airports in India. And from there, you can actually take a helicopter ride directly to Kedarnath and do a trip like that. Or you could also take the scenic route, which I have shown in the map here, and get to Fata, which is also a helicopter base where all the helicopter companies are based. And from there, you can take a flight. If you decide to take a trek instead of a helicopter ride, I'll show you how to do that next. As I was mentioning before, we took the scenic route to Fata from Dehradun. So we got a cab, we hired a cab which could actually drive in the mountains, and we went to all the places around on our route. But ultimately, we got to Fata and took a helicopter ride from there to Kedarnath. If you do not want to take a helicopter ride, there is an option of taking treks, multiple treks are available. But for that, you'll have to get your own transportation and get to a place called Sonprayag. Sonprayag is the last place that you can park your vehicles. From there, you'll have to take a shared taxi to Gaurikund, which is where all the trails start from. The trails are all done yearly, so you'll have to look up the map and the directions for the trail each year, and you'll get appropriate information in Gaurikund as you go. There, this is Fata. This is where all the helicopter rides, pretty much all the helicopter rides originate from that go to Kedarnath. I think the ride is around 20-25 minutes. Fata itself is built on a steep slopes of the hills, very close to the Himalayas, and it's very scenic and beautiful if you want to spend some time there, or if you want to take trips to nearby places from there. It's easily available. I think we went to another place called Triyug Narayan Temple nearby. It is absolutely wonderful. So, hope you enjoyed the pictures and see how the helicopter is diving into the valley. It actually goes into a valley, flies for around 20-25 minutes along the valley floor, and then ascends back up into the mountains to get to the Kedar plateau. Do you want to see how it looks like as soon as you land in Kedarnath? Here, there's a clip for you. Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that clip. Before we go any further, I would like to show you this picture. See the helicopter there? To the left of the helicopter, you can see a trail running. That is a trail that comes from Gaurikund all the way to Kedarnath. So if you take the trek, you can pass through glaciers, boulders, streams running. There will be mules or horses competing for walking space, along with people in palanquins and hand carriages and whatnot. So that's the way you come to Kedarnath if you take a trek. It's actually not very bad to get there, but please remember that the elevation of the location is around 12,000 feet, and there is real danger of oxygen deprivation and also exhaustion. So if you have any health problems, please keep that in mind. But if you can do it, I would highly recommend the trip because it supposedly has some amazing views. You can see some of them from the helicopter, but if you're right there walking, I think it'll be really great. That's it. Let's go. It's basically a piece of land that is very flat and surrounded by these huge mountains, the foothills, and right after them are the Himalayas. I'll show you a few pictures of the Kedarnath around the helipad as soon as you land so you get some idea about the surroundings. Let's see if you notice something in this picture. Now, in this one, you'll see it very clearly, I think. There are some clouds obstructing the view of something behind, which is black and white at the same time. That one is the actual Himalayas. Right now, it's around 5 o'clock in the evening, so you can't really see them clearly. You can see them very clearly in the morning tomorrow. You have an idea as to what it looks like now. And if you're wondering who's taking you around, that's me. After leaving the helipad, you will take this route to go to the temple. On the right side, you see some accommodations with the red roof. Those are the ones that are built by the tourism department so that people can stay overnight if they need to. These are some barrack style apartments that are built with metal so they get very cold at night, and they also have bunk beds and shared bathrooms, so keep that in mind if you get them. If you go further ahead towards the temple, you'll also find guest houses there where you can get accommodation, but I highly recommend pre-booking them. As you leave the helipad behind and walk towards the temple, you will see this view. Up top, you can see this bright glow. That is the Himalayas. The sunlight is falling on them and reflecting off of it. Down below, you'll see a footbridge. That footbridge is the one that is taking you across a river called Mandakini. A beautiful name. I'll tell you more about it in a bit. In 2020, I think it would be a direct line of sight to the temple from here. Welcome to the mighty river Mandakini. You'll see in a bit why I call it mighty. But if you see, you can hardly see the river, but huge boulders that have been washed by water. The main thing to know about Mandakini is that it's a glacial river melt. That means it is melting the glaciers and moving all the rubble and boulders and sand and everything, sediment, from along with the glacier bottom and pushing it out. So it's not a rain river, it's a glacial melt river. There, that's another view of our beautifully named Mandakini. You can see the river here and also the people for comparison. The ferocity of the river is so high that it reaches all the way up, so the canyon is completely filled with water sometimes. Just the beginning of the summer season, so the melt is just started, but it can be much more or much less depending on the season. I'll tell you something interesting. Mandakini is another name for the river Ganga, the holiest river in India. You wonder why? Because Ganga is actually comprised of many feeder rivers, and one of them is Mandakini. You want to know how it looks like? Let's see. Let's see this picture from right to left. So the first one you see on the top is Badrinath. That's the shrine for Vishnu. And you see that there's a river called Alakananda that is coming from there. It also has another river called Dhauli Ganga and another river called Nandakini and Pindar Ganga. All of them intersect or confluence at various points and become Alakananda again. In Kedarnath, there is Mandakini and it confluences with Alakananda in Rudraprayag. Then you go left and there is Gangotri. That's where Bhagirath, the sage, requests Ganga to come. That's where Bhagirathi comes from. And it confluences with Alakananda, Mandakini, Dhauli Ganga, Nandakini, and Pindar Ganga, all of them at Devprayag. It's a spectacular scene with the blue and grey waters intermixing together. I'll show you a small clip so see it. But Devrayag is the place where the final version of Ganga is called Ganga. Bhagirathi, Mandakini, Dhauli Ganga, Alakananda, Nandakini, Pindar Ganga, all of them are Gangas. In this picture, up top you'll see a small stream coming down. That's actually not a small stream, it's a huge stream. But you'll see the stream. That is the one version of the Mandakini, and there are various streams that come down the Himalayas and merge into this one portion that is coming to the left. And there is another one that is coming from the right, that is called Saraswati sometimes, but it also merges right here in the bridge, and it's called Mandakini again. This is after you cross the footbridge. This is around the time you might feel oxygen deprivation if you have taken the helicopter ride. So be mindful of that and rest if you need to. But you are almost around the corner to see the temple right now. There, finally, you'll see the temple here. It's almost like it's in the clouds because it is in the clouds. It's around elevation of 12,000 feet. So right behind it are the clouds, right below it the clouds, and you're surrounded by clouds. So it's an amazing view, and I'll show you next. Hope you like the view. So as you enter the premises of the temple, just before you do, there is a huge arc on which there are huge brass bells rung, and the devotees are all ringing those bells. There is almost no sound in the valleys, so the ringing of the bells echoes through the mountains, and it's like an amazing sound. I'll show you a clip of that shortly. This is the main entrance to the temple. You can see that it's adorned with marigold flowers and jasmine and various other kinds of flowers. And you can see a bunch of other statues of other gods on the main facade. The pilgrims that come by walk usually use the main entrance, that is from this side. This is a side view of the temple. This is unique architecture to this part of India of temple construction, and also something to remember is that this temple was probably built around the 9th or 10th century of our common era. So it's a quite an old temple, and remember the idol of Shiva, the stone that is being worshipped, that has been continuously washed with water and other things for over 1,000 years. On the main platform of the temple, there are a bunch of sadhus, or how you'd call them as monks, devotees of Shiva, who are performing some rituals on the main arcade. So there is a pit with fire in it, and they put various kinds of things in it. Lots of things which are very personal or have meaning to the devotees are offered here as an offering, and the other kind of rituals that are also performed. So I'll show you some other close-up views of the sadhus, and let's see. So that's a close-up view of the Havan, or the fire pit where offerings are made. But I will show you something much more interesting, which includes an audio-visual effect. So see the next clip. From what I heard, some of the idols were rescued after the flood and were put on this little platform that was an existing shrine already, and people are worshipping it. Right beside, behind the thing, actually, you can see a rock. I'll tell you a little bit more about it next. Next is an amazing clip. It's a spontaneous burst of devotees who are singing to Shiva. The entrance is to the side, and the people who are entering from this side are usually here by helicopter and have a priority pass to get back to the helicopter again. I think there were Telugu and Tamil people who spontaneously erupted into singing, and it was magical. That is Nandi, the companion animal of Shiva. I'll tell you more about him in a little bit, but notice there is a white stuff around the tail area of the bull. That is butter. There is a story that relates the whole place and its origin with that butter. I'll tell you. Okay? So, are you ready? I'll take you inside the shrine and show you the golden bull while I tell you the story. Okay? So, in the ancient epic of Mahabharata, the protagonists, who are the Pandavas, after they win the war, they finally are told by their guru and spiritual leader, Vyasa, to go on a renunciation path. Most Hindus forget that there are 4 stages of life, and the last stage is renunciation, where you leave the world and all the worldly possessions and walk away from life and go into the forest or Himalayas or wherever and contemplate life and slowly die. It doesn't matter really the way you die, but that is a stage of life that is prescribed. Anyways, moving on. So, Pandavas are told to come to this field or Kedara at this particular place of origin of river Mandakini, and they are told that they'll find Shiva here and they can pray to Shiva for forgiveness of their sins in this life. So Pandavas, who are 5 brothers, and their wife Draupadi, don't ask me more questions about that right now, but 5 guys, 4 brothers and their wife come to this place. When they come to this place, they find a huge bull and nothing else. Finally, they decide that this bull is Shiva. So, what do? The strongest of them, Bhima, tries to go and catch the bull. The bull, of course, doesn't want to be caught. So, he wrestles with the bull and injures the bull in the process and also injured in the process. So, both of them have this bloody fight, and finally the bull gives a huge roar and puts its horns into the ground and burrows itself. Bhima doesn't give up yet and then still tries to catch it, but the bull goes inside and only the rump of the bull remains, and by the time they realize how stupid they have been trying to get hold and control of Shiva himself, even after realizing that this could be Shiva and being told by their spiritual guru that you can find Shiva there. They are obviously devastated, and in remorse they wash the rump and with Ganga, that is Mandakini, that's right there, and apply butter on the wounds of the rump that is protruding out. Just in front of this golden Nandi, there is another room, a chamber, inside which the main idol of Shiva that's worshipped is there. I will describe it to you a little bit. It is a pyramidal kind of triangular stone that is protruding out of the ground. It is of significant size, it's not small, and you can touch it. Of all the wonders, especially if you go early in the morning when the idol is being bathed. So I got to touch it, and it's a very wonderful feeling, but also physically it is kind of rough. Given the number of times it's washed and the water is poured on it every day, every minute of every day, I'm surprised that it is still rough, but it is a slightly rough surface and doesn't seem to mind all the ablutions. So that is a unique thing. And if you go early in the morning before sunrise or after sunrise around 4:30 or something, when the idol is being bathed, you can absolutely touch it some chance. So keep that in mind if you want to do that. So this is a boulder we should talk about a little bit. You see, for size comparison, on the right side you'll see a small human in the head. So that's the size of the boulder. That boulder basically came and stopped right behind the temple and split the flood waters into 2, so that the actual temple was not hit by rubble and the glacial melt. This boulder itself probably came from the bottom of the glacier. It's actually being worshipped right now by people that it saved the temple. If you're facing the temple, to your right side, on top of a small mountain, small is like relative, but on a mountain, you will see some flags. That's a temple dedicated to the protective god of this area. So it's a temple dedicated to Bhairanath, who is the ferocious form of Shiva himself. He's in a human form, and he's like a warrior who is protecting the whole town and the place. So it was around 6 or 6:30 in the evening, almost getting dark, but I decided to hike and go there. The path to the temple was not rebuilt after the last floods, so it was kind of risky, but I decided to go for it anyways. I would highly recommend not doing it if you are in that situation, but I did it, so you can see what I did. To get to the hilltop Bhairanath temple, I had to cross a few streams, some small and some large, not very big, but sizable, and go on top of this hill. You can see from the opposite side, you can see the streams down below, and there's small bridges in some places, and some place you have to just wade through water. Well, I had to wade through water, but I think it's better now. One of the advantages of going up this hillock is that you can get a more aerial view of the place, and you can see from the opposite side, from the right side of the temple. If you're facing the temple, you can see the opposite side of the hills. That stream, the white stream that you see, that is one of the streams that is Mandakini. The path was shored up by rock walls, but most places that was gone, so it was pretty precarious. I'll show you a few more pictures of the path to the temple. This one looks the worst of all because the bridge is completely cut in half by the rubble that has fallen on it. It's not as bad as it looks. You can walk on top of the boulders a little bit and get across. That is almost at the end of the trek up the hill. I think this has been repaired now, so it's much more safer, but you get an idea. In this one, you can see the temple to your leftmost bottom, and up above are the Himalayas, and also there is a glacier, multiple glaciers actually, and one of the glaciers is Chorabari, which is the glacier from which Mandakini and other streams around here flow from. But there are like tons and tons of other glaciers in the Himalayas. Few other views from up above of the temple and the city around. You see they are building a retaining wall which is in the shape of a U right in the middle. That is supposed to actually deflect the flood waters from hitting the temple itself and split it in two, naturally as the rock did before. Finally, you reach the hilltop. You can see the flags now, and you just have to get inside. Before you get there, see some amazing views from up the hill of the origins of the river, and also in then one of the pictures you'll see the actual Himalayas where the clouds are slightly parted and you can see the rugged granite and other kinds of rocks that are almost making it black, on which there is a fresh coat of snow that's just falling, I think. Now you're on the hilltop temple. You can see that there's a square fire pit that was there near the temple. You have some steps which lead you up to the actual shrine. That is the shrine. It's actually built into the rock of the cliffs itself, and the leftmost side, I think it's Bhairanath, and there are various other gods and goddesses on the black hilltop too. There are a bunch of bells that are also there, that the devotees have accumulated over time and got them here and tied them up here, and it's amazingly beautiful to see. And see some views of the temple and around the hills from here. I'll not talk for a little bit, and you can see how beautiful it is. And literally this seems like the protector god. I'll show you in the next picture where I find it. Okay. See this picture? Doesn't it look like the protector god is actually holding the town and the temple itself under his umbrella of protection? I think it's quite nice actually. and hope you see around the hills. I'll tell you a crazy experience here. Okay, I was alone here and there was nobody else, but there had been somebody else probably right before me because there were still lamps that were lit. But I was all alone here on top of the hill with nobody inside, and I could see that there were clouds that came above me and the clouds that came below me, and I was in the middle on this hilltop. It was quite a unnerving feeling actually because there was no ground. The only ground that I could see was the what I was standing on. So that was a crazy experience. But let's go down. It's night now almost. I somehow climbed down the hill at night, and I'll show you the night views. The temple is lit at night, so that's pretty much the only thing that you see at night in the complete darkness. So you come down and see the temple like that, and let's go next. That's our Nandi that we saw in the morning, and he's been anointed with more butter, as you can see, on his rump and his all over his body. It's kind of cute. I think it shows a tenderness of human heart to care for animals or protect or care for something that you might have hurt, either knowingly or unknowingly. So I think it's kind of sweet. Now I'll stop for a bit and I'll show you some night views of the temple. There is a small audio-visual clip. Hope you enjoy it. See you soon in the morning. Good morning. Today is the daytime of Kedarnath. Now you can see the temple in its full glory. The back of the temple has this white background which almost feels like the sky, but it is not. That's the main thing I noticed. As you are close to the temple, you can see that there's a wall of ice in front of you, which is pretty magnificent. And I will not talk for much for a bit, and you can see the views. And I will also have a audiovisual clip which will show you the puja in the morning that you can hear from outside. All tribute to the wonderful buildings that were constructed around Kedarnath for over 1,000 years by kings and queens. This is one example which has not been washed out, but probably will be restored hopefully. But I wanted to take some pictures, and it's a typical architecture of the Himalayas, and it's quite beautiful. There are also some animal life that I will like to show you. I think this is a Tibetan Mastiff, and also there's some birds, lots of birds actually, and I saw a few birds which I took clips of, and they're very pretty. Definitely with a heavy heart that I was leaving, but I was very grateful for the opportunity to see the temple both at night and the morning, and I took a few clicks right before we got on the helicopter again. Hope you enjoyed the story and the trip. See you soon.